Hey friends, I'm RSKT. In today's video, I want to show you how you can take beats that you've made on the Synthstrom Deluge and turn them into something a little bit more interesting. So we're going to be taking a standard beat that sounds like this, and turn it into something like this. So before starting this, just a quick note, you can 100% do this with all of the stock kits inside of the Deluge. We will start out that way, but eventually I switch over to using a sample pack. The sample pack that I'm using is XOXO from Samplified. I'll make sure that I leave a link to that down below in the description. I think it cost me like $1. But you can absolutely use any sample pack that you want. All you really need are some percussive samples, like drum hits, and maybe some percussive loops as well. Now, this video wound up being a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I didn't want to skip over anything. A lot of these techniques are things that I use all the time, and I just wanted to make sure that I included each and every one of them. I might also quickly point out that the tutorial is entirely in mono, and that's purely because I only have two inputs on my audio interface. So one had to be for my microphone, and the other one had to be for the Deluge. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump onto the Deluge and have a look. Okay, so we're in kit view on the Deluge. I'm going to turn on the metronome and let's stay down a simple drum beat. All right, we went a little bit over there, so let's just bring those bars back. And let's make sure that everything's on time. So before we go any further, let's see if we can just spice this up as it is. Kind of like it being a little bit more simple in that second bar. All right, and I want like a little fill at the end here. Yeah, maybe something like that. All right, so this is just working with the kick and the snare at the moment. Let's see if we can throw in a little bit more variation on the snare. We could place another snare here. Maybe we'll have this roll into the next beat so that it's not just such a sudden drop. So at the moment we got this. What if we hold this one, and if we press and hold this knob and turn it to the right, you'll see that we can repeat notes. So let's change this to 2, and that should give us 2 hits on the snare and then immediately jump into the kick, which will give us like a little triplet fill. All right, maybe something here as well. Just experiment a little. Yeah, okay. So what we'll do with that little triplet is we'll just make it almost like ghost notes. So we'll change the velocity of this first hit, these first 2 hits, and just see what that sounds like. Still pretty loud. Maybe even one here as well. Yeah, so adding in these tiny little ghost notes like you would on a normal drum kit can just sort of add a little bit more of a human feel and flavor to things. So let's just listen to the whole thing as is for now. Maybe at the end. I just want to see what this one sounds like. I'm kind of just winging it here to see what works and what doesn't. Maybe we'll add in a double there. Okay, let's leave that as is for now. And what I want to do is change some of these samples. So at the moment we have a default kit, and I'd like to use some of the samples from a sample pack that I've used. The sample pack is called XOXO from Samplified. I'll leave a link down below in the description. I picked it up for $1. You don't have to use the sample pack at all. I just have grown really accustomed to using it. I like a lot of samples in there. And obviously, when you're doing this stuff, you're going to use your own sample pack. So it doesn't really matter anyway. So let's press Shift Kit. This has made a new kit row. And let's scroll to RSKT, XOXO. And in here we have some drums and percussion. So what I'm looking for is kick. Maybe something like that. And for the snare, let's jump back, go into snare. All right, so that took me a little while to find something I liked. So with this snare, let's just add on, make sure that effect entire is not turned on. We'll switch to reverb and just add the tiniest little bit of a reverb tail. You can switch between small, medium, and large. And I only just want a little bit, so maybe we'll leave it on medium, see what that sounds like. Tiny spin on the kick. Just enough so that it's there, but that you can barely hear it. All right, one other thing that we could do is load in the exact same snare sample that we already have here. I'll add a little bit of reverb to this as well. All right, so now we have these two snares that are exactly the same. What I'm going to do is on the second one, press Shift and transpose. And we're going to use this wheel up here just to scroll across to the second digit so that we're not going up and down fully in semitones, just by a few cents at a time. You hear that little bit of difference? You can push this a little bit further if you want by going down a few more. Or maybe you want to go up. Maybe we'll try that one. So what we can do now is where we've got just our normal kit, let's just swap some of these out between the top one and the bottom one. This one definitely seems a little bit louder. Go across, maybe do that one here as well. Sweet. So it's going to be very subtle, but what I'm trying to emulate is when you hit a snare drum, it's not always going to sound the exact same. Sometimes your hand might move a little bit to the left and right, and you'll shoot out towards from the center, and it's going to create some sonic variation. So by doing this, it's not always going to be a huge difference, and depending on the type of samples you're using, it might not make any difference at all. But I'm trying to emulate that there's a little bit more of a human feel behind it. Take a listen. If we want, we can still go back in and push this even further. Sweet. So what I'm going to do now is create a new track. I like to put my hi-hats on a separate track. You can definitely do this in the same track if you want to. I just like to put my hi-hats on a separate track so that they're a little bit easier to bring in and out when I'm performing about the song. So we'll go in here, create a new kit. Let's jump back out of here and go into our hi-hat samples. This one sounds okay. I'm going to load in the same one here as well, just so that we've got that sonic variation like we did with the snare. And now let's bring in an open hi-hat as well. All right, so let's just lay down a basic hi-hat groove and see how we go. All right, so we have a basic hi-hat groove here. Let's just set things up for 2 bars for now. So we'll duplicate that by holding Shift and the select button at the top. We'll zoom back in and go to the first part of this bar. All right, that little I'm really liking that there. What if we switch to triplets view? Sometimes that can create some cool results. So I'm just going to press this here and have a look. We'll skip this one out and this one. Now we've got that little fill at the end of the kick and snare. But before we duplicate this and add a little bit more variation, let's look at what we can do with just these 2 bars, because there's a few things I want to cover here. So one thing we could do is, again, transpose this just a few cents. Maybe 1 whole semitone. That's a bit much. All right, we'll see what this sounds like if we just throw these in random places. Switch to triplets view for this one. All right, let's see if we can throw in an open hi-hat as well and just see where it would fit. Cool. So what I want to do is nudge some of these notes, because it's very rare that a human drummer is going to play perfectly in time with the beat, especially when they're jamming away on the hi-hat. So we can nudge notes. What we'll do is we'll press and hold a couple of notes at a time. So let's hold these 3. And using this, if we hold it down and dial it back once, we'll see it says left. You can either go left or you can go right. So I might dial it right 2 notches and just see how that sounds. Do this for all of what we have. I want this open hi-hat to be sort of right on that beat though. I'm really happy with that. So it's really hard to hear, but it's definitely there. These are now just that little bit off of the beat away from our kick and snare. It might be easier to hear if we hear the second bar directly after this. I can hear it. I hope you can hear it too. Yeah, it makes the world of difference to me. So we'll do that for these as well. Just 2 notches. By the way, if you do these like one at a time, you can see how much. When you're doing it with triplets, it might show that it's already been done, and that's just the way the Deluge works with triplet view. But yeah, if you do this with one at a time, it'll actually show you these increments. It just doesn't show you if you've got more than one note selected. Cool. I'm wondering if we can just add a little bit more variation on the 4th measure. So we'll duplicate all of this and just go to the last bar. Okay, so I just added in a quick little hi-hat roll there. And maybe we can add one here. All right, so very messy, sort of glitchy, probably impossible to play on an actual drum kit, but I kind of like it. Let's see if we can put in a few more of these little random doubles just to show some variation throughout the whole thing. All right, cool. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's do a little bit of mixing before we move on. So this hi-hat's very clunky. I want to take out some of that low end, so we'll switch to a high pass filter. Bring that up a little bit. Do the same with this one. And on the overall track, let's add the subtlest bit of reverb. Cool. Let's do this for the kick and the snare as well. Some meat to it. Cool. So another thing that we can do is start panning some things. Now, obviously, that's going to be a little hard to hear because I need this plugged in mono right now, but it's what I would normally do if I had these set up for stereo. So maybe I would pan the snare slightly to the right. And if you really wanted some sonic variation, you could pan these snares separately, but I prefer a sort of more realistic approach. Cool, and then I would go in and probably pan these hi-hats slightly left. Sweet, so far. All right, so that's not all. There's a couple of other things we could do. Now, at the moment, when you place in a kick sample, the Deluge defaults the sidechain compressor to use the first kick that you put down. And I don't really want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is select this kick, and we'll go to the sidechain shortcut and press send. It's set to 50, which means that it's all the way on. So let's turn that all the way down. Then we'll go and add in another track at the top. And we'll just place in a kick. So now it's happening on every beat. And let's just shorten it to view only that. Awesome. Now I want to take this kick and send it to the sidechain. It's already there because it defaulted as this kick. And we'll turn the level of this track all the way down. Now if we go into our hi-hat track, what I want to do is bring in that compressor. Not so much on the open hi-hat, but definitely on the closed hi-hat. So we'll turn off effect and char and just bring in this compressor. Let's just add a little bit of saturation to some of these elements just to sort of dirty them up a little bit. I like to do that a lot. It sounds really cool to me. Not so much on the kick. I like the kick to maintain some of the bass it already has, but let's check out these snares here. Just subtly. And we'll do this for the hi-hats as well. Great. So sorry if there is a weird transition there. My SD card filled up. I took 20 minutes to unload everything from it and then recorded the rest of this video without pressing record on my camera. So I've gone back to where we left off, which is fun. Anyways, let's continue. So one thing that we can do to spice things up a little bit is throw in a little bit of swing. We could do that by holding shift and scrolling this tempo knob up. So by default, it's actually set to 50. And if we introduce this, maybe we'll go out to 60 and see if we can hear a difference. I'll push this even further just so you can hear it. So I'm going to leave it at 58. Just keep in mind that when you're adjusting the swing is a global effect. So it's going to affect everything in your entire project. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's throw in a couple more percussive elements that are really going to help bring this to life. I'm going to start a new track. We'll go into that same sample folder we've been using, and there's some percussion loops in here. So let's have a listen. Great. So many different ones to choose from. Every sample pack's got to be different. You just find what works for you. So if we place this down straight away, it's going to sound kind of weird. Real mess. So what we need to do is make this fall in sync with the rest of our project. So if we hold shift and sample mode, we can change it from cut to stretch. Doing that, we'll see that it's stretched it across 2 bars. If we halved this, it's going to play the same thing in half the time. And if we stretch it out all the way, it's just going to slow it down to play across 4 bars, which I think is probably going to be what I want. Great. Now you could play around with a bunch of different effects. For example, I might take out some of the low end. And I also like to play around with the saturation and decimation. Decimation is mapped to custom 2 by default. So let's have a bit of a listen. Let's actually record some of the automation for that and just see what we wind up with. Cool. So let's also throw in a few drum fills. Not every sample pack is going to have drum fills, but some of them do. And you can just download sample packs that are entirely made up of drum fills. So I'm going to load in probably about 4 so that we've got 1 for each bar and see what we wind up with. Go back. Here's my fills folder. I use this one a lot. That one too. Great, I'm happy with those 4. So let's just set all of these to stretch as well so that they'll play in time with our metronome. Great, so now if we put each one of these down, you'll see that some last for half a bar and some last for a full bar. So let's take all of these out and just find some appropriate places for them. Let's double the length of this. Just play around a bit more. Cool. That sounds kind of funky. So let's take out some of the low end of these as well. All right. So a couple of other things you could do. We're not going to be able to hear this because it's in mono, but panning some of these elements left and right can really throw in some cool glitchy effects as well. So let's just do that for the hell of it. All right, so all up, our beat now sounds like this. Okay, so I think that sounds pretty cool. At the moment, that's given us 4 tracks to work with. And mainly, we've got a sidechain track that's always going to be playing. We've got our kick, snare, and hi-hat tracks, which are good to be able to toggle off and on from each other when you're in the middle of a performance. And we've got these cool backing fills and everything like that. Now, 4 tracks already seems like a lot for drums, and it is. But I like to sort of have a bunch of drum parameters at the top and then all of my melodic stuff living down the bottom. And that way, as I'm performing a track, I kind of know where everything is and can just quickly toggle things on and off to either add more or take away from certain sections of the song. So one last thing I think is really important, and this definitely depends on your song and overall track performance, but throwing in a couple of builds and rises. So we'll just throw in one more track here, and we'll go to our sample folder again, and we'll use kick for this. Let's go back. Great, so towards the end here, we have effects. We've got crashes, drops, impacts, lifts, and vocal effects as well. Let's listen to lifts. Cool. I kind of like this first one. That'll do. All right, we'll change the sample mode to stretch, and let's just see how long that is. Cool, so we're looking at 4 bars here. Let's place it at the end, and we'll just zoom in and listen to the last 2 bars, see what that's like. All right, it ends a little bit too early, so what we'll do is have a look at the waveform, and we'll move this over to see what that's like. Yep. Wow, it's very loud, and maybe we'll just throw on a little bit of reverb and delay and see what that's like. Awesome. And maybe right at the beginning, we'll throw in a crash. So go back, there's a crash folder. That one's nice and subtle. You could change the sample mode of this to stretch as well, it's up to you. One other thing that we could do is load in the exact same crash sample, place it down, change the sample mode to stretch, and then we could also press shift and reverse. If we turn that on, then we'll get a reverse crash towards the end. We'll just have a listen to that. Just make sure that it lines up. Yeah, I don't really like it, but it's something that you can do. Now, one thing I haven't talked about here, and I think it'll be the final thing to discuss, is note probability. So let's just say that we had a couple more samples in our kick and snare folder. Let's load those in. Maybe that one. Great, so we got these 3. I probably won't have these in here, and you can do this with any drum sound and get a lot of really cool variation. So let's just place these in randomly. Great, so they're happening. So what we could do is, holding this and turning the select knob, you'll see that if we turn it to the left, we get a value of up to 100. And if we turn it to the right, we can say we want it to play the first time of every 2 plays through, or the second time, and so on and so forth. So let's just change this to 50% of the time. Maybe we could change this one to 70, maybe this one to 30, so on and so forth, so that every time that these notes are being played through, they're just going to happen randomly. Sweet. So you can hear that every time we play this, we're getting a couple of different sounds. Let's just add in a few more and see how they fit. Great. Let's change the probability of some of these. Completely randomized. Great, so now every time this plays through, we're just going to get random little taps happening throughout this beat. Sweet, so let's leave the sidechain and the kick and snare on and slowly bring these in and take a little bit of a listen. Oh wait, I just remembered one more really cool thing that we could try out. I'm sure a lot of you already know this by now, but you can change the effect per step of certain samples. So for example, we could maybe pick a snare, and as long as effect entire isn't on, if we switch to reverb and turn that up all the way, you'll get something like this. So you could definitely try that out. I don't particularly like it. It's just a quick example of what you can do, but changing like different filter cutoffs and delay times, maybe even selecting some of these, and so that when they trigger, you'll get some weird sort of delayed results. That one's definitely up a little bit too high. So maybe we'll drop the reverb down from these snares. And yeah, let's select a couple more of these. Just increase the delay slightly. I might also throw in, when I'm usually doing this, I like to keep my sidechain color either green or orange because I don't find myself using those colors much. And I do that by holding shift and turning this knob. And for all of my drum sounds, I like to change them all to be blue. So if we hold this down, shift, and turn this, we can change these to be blue. I kind of do this once I'm done sort of setting up my main beats, just so that I don't get lost while I'm making them. And that way, when I'm performing a track back, I'd go ahead and change all of these to blue. And when I'm performing something back, I can quickly see at a bird's eye view that this is my sidechain view. I never really want to turn this off. And all of these are going to be blue. They're my drums. And then I'll move on to my other melodic elements. Sometimes for these fills and rises, though, I will make them slightly red or something that stands out to me, so that I can quickly activate them if I want to. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. It's what I've been doing with my drums lately, and I'm really liking the grooves that I'm getting out of sequencing on this thing. Sometimes it's definitely a little crazy and overboard, but I find that even if I make something crazy like this and then I start working on the melodic stuff, I get something really unique and interesting, which I never would have created on anything else. And I'm really liking it. And yeah, I hope that it assists you creatively and that you're able to make some dope beats as well. So that is it from me today, everybody. I hope that you learned at least one thing that's useful to you. You can definitely push this a lot further to create some even glitchier results, or you can dial it back some more and get something a little bit more realistic. One final note, all of these sounds that you heard today were processed through an Ableton effects rack for the final recording, and if you want more detail on how to pull something like that off, check out my latest upload. I've got a full tutorial walking you through how to do just that. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.